The examination hall smelled like fear and recycled air. Commander Vrel of the Castorian Imperial Fleet stood at the back of the auditorium, his 3 eyes scanning the rows of human cadets hunched over their testing tablets. This was supposed to be simple. A practical assessment, military protocol, tactical response, standard operating procedures for crisis scenarios. Nothing these soft-skinned primates couldn't handle if they'd actually studied. 15 minutes remaining, announced Instructor Calrix through the translation collar wrapped around his thick, scaled neck. The Thulian's voice echoed off the metal walls, and several humans flinched. Good. They should be nervous. Vrel clicked his mandibles together in what passed for Castorian amusement. Humans, the newest addition to the Galactic Defense Coalition, and honestly, the betting pools back on the flagship gave them 6 months before they washed out completely. Too emotional, too unpredictable, too damn fragile. He'd seen a human break their own finger just by closing a door. Wrong! A door! What kind of species loses a fight with basic architecture? But the Coalition needed bodies after the Vrax incursion wiped out 3 entire fleets. So here they were, humans, bottom of the food chain, top of the desperation list. One cadet in particular caught Vrel's attention. Row 7, seat 12. The human female, with the dark hair, pulled back so tight it must have hurt. Her jaw set in that peculiar way humans did when they were concentrating. Her name tag read Reeves M., and she was staring at her tablet like it had personally insulted her family. 5 minutes! Qualrix's voice boomed again. Cadet Reeves didn't even look up. Her fingers moved across the tablet screen, occasionally pausing, then resuming with what looked like increased urgency. Around her, other cadets were finishing up, setting down their styluses, leaning back with expressions ranging from confidence to barely concealed panic. Vrel moved. Closer, his footsteps silent, despite his bulk. Military surveillance was part of his job. Monitoring, assessing, deciding which of these humans would actually survive their first real deployment and which ones would become statistics. The tablet in front of Reeves flickered, then went dark. Vrel's middle eye narrowed. Technical failure? No, the other tablets were functioning normally. He watched as Reeves tapped the screen once, twice, then held down the power button. Nothing. The device was dead. Now this would be interesting. Most species had a predictable response to equipment failure during testing. Reptilians would signal an instructor immediately, citing protocol violation. Aquarians would adapt, attempting to complete the test through memory recitation. Reeves sat perfectly still for exactly 3 seconds. Then her head tilted, and Vrel could practically see the calculations happening behind those strange, forward-facing eyes. She raised her hand. Calrix waddled over, his bulk making the floor plates creak. Problem, cadet? My tablet died, sir. Her voice was steady. Too steady. Vrel's combat instincts prickled. That was the voice of someone planning something. Then you fail. Qualrix's tone was matter-of-fact. Equipment malfunction is not an excuse for incomplete submission. You had 60 minutes. Time management is part of the assessment. Understood, sir. Reeves's face showed nothing. However, the testing parameters stated we must demonstrate tactical problem-solving under pressure using available resources. Is that correct? Vrel's mandibles stopped clicking. Oh, this was going somewhere unexpected. Calrix's scales rippled, a sign of confusion. Yes, but you have no functioning equipment, therefore no available resources. Permission to disagree, sir. Several nearby cadets turned to look. You didn't disagree with Instructor. Calrix. The Thulian had personally survived 16 battle campaigns and had once eaten a Vrax warrior who'd questioned his authority. Well, probably not eaten. But the rumor was convincing enough. 2 minutes remaining, Qualrix said, instead of responding. If you have no submission, you will score 0. Your choice, cadet. I'll have a submission, sir. Reeves stood up, and Vrel noticed her hands moving to her waist, unhooking something from her belt. The testing tablet. The dead one. She held it horizontally, weighing it, testing its balance. What in the spiral galaxies was she doing? 1 minute! Other cadets were filing out now, submitting their tablets to the collection drone hovering near the exit. Reeves remained standing, and Vrel positioned himself for a better view. His warrior instincts were fully alert now. Something was about to happen. 30 seconds. Reeves moved. Not rushed. Not panicked. Deliberate. She gripped the tablet with both hands and slammed it down, against the edge of her desk. The crack echoed through the auditorium. Calrix spun around, his small eyes widening. Half the remaining cadets froze mid-step. She hit it again. Harder. The tablet's casing split, and she pried it apart with her bare hands, the synthetic materials groaning under the pressure. Her fingers worked fast, pulling out the internal components, discarding the screen, the battery pack, the processing chips. 15 seconds. Cadet Reeves, what are you doing? Calrix's voice had gone up half an octave. She didn't answer. Her hands found what they were looking for. The tablet's metal frame, now separated from its casing. She snapped off a protruding section, then another, her movements precise. Vrel recognized the technique. She was weaponizing the debris. 10 seconds. With quick, efficient motions, she used the elastic band from her hair, wrapping it around one end of the metal frame piece, creating a grip. The sharp, broken edge of the tablet's corner became a blade. Makeshift, crude, but unmistakably lethal. 5 seconds. She held up the improvised weapon, testing its weight, adjusting her grip. Then, she looked directly at Calrix. Scenario 7 on the exam was a hostage situation aboard a damaged vessel. No weapons, no backup, failing life support. Her voice cut through the stunned silence. The question asked, what tactical response would save the most lives? Time. Calrix's announcement came out strangled. Reeves didn't lower the weapon. Every answer choice assumed negotiation or defensive positioning. But the scenario specifically stated the hostage takers were Vrax warriors. Vrax don't negotiate. They don't feel fear. They respect exactly one thing. She held up her improvised blade. Immediate, overwhelming aggression. You can't outthink them. You can't outweight them. You can only outviolence them before they kill everyone on board. The auditorium had gone completely silent. The scenario said, use what you have. Reeves finally set the weapon on her desk with a soft click. I had a tablet. Now I have a weapon. That's my submission, sir. When your equipment fails, when everything goes wrong, when you're out of options, you make new ones. Vrel felt something he hadn't experienced in over a decade of military service. Genuine surprise, followed immediately by something that might have been respect or concern, possibly both. Calrix approached slowly, his scales flickering through colors Vrel had never seen before. The instructor picked up the improvised weapon, examining it from multiple angles. The edge was sharp enough to pierce standard armor. The grip was solid. The balance wasn't perfect, but in close quarters, against an unarmored opponent, lethal. You destroyed Coalition property? Calrix said finally. Yes, sir. You deviated from standard testing procedure? Yes, sir. You created a weapon in a non-combat zone? Yes, sir. Reeves's expression remained neutral, but Vrel caught the slight twitch at the corner of her mouth. The human was enjoying this. Calrix set down the weapon. Then, to Vrel's absolute shock, you pass. With honors. Dismissed, cadet. Reeves snapped a salute, grabbed her makeshift weapon. No, Calrix gestured for her to leave it, and walked out of the auditorium with her head high. The remaining cadets parted like water around a ship's bow. When the door sealed behind her, Calrix turned to face Vrel directly. Commander? Your assessment? Vrel clicked his mandibles slowly, processing what he'd witnessed. Dangerous. Agreed. Creative. Absolutely. Completely insane. That too. Qualrix picked up the weapon again, turning it over in his clawed hands. The question is, Commander, does the Coalition need more soldiers who follow every protocol perfectly? Or do we need more soldiers who survive when all the protocols fail? That was the question, wasn't it? Vrel thought about the Vrax incursion, about the fleets that had followed every tactical doctrine, every strategic protocol, every rule of engagement written over thousands of years of galactic warfare. And they died. Died following orders, died doing everything right, died because the Vrax didn't care about rules. File a report, Vrel said finally. Mark her file for advanced tactical training. And Commander Qualrix? Increase surveillance on Cadet Reeves. Extensively. You think she's a threat? Vrel's three eyes focused on the improvised weapon still sitting on the desk. I think she's exactly the kind of threat we need. And that terrifies me. Later that cycle, in the cadet barracks, Reeves sat on her bunk, rubbing her sore hands. Breaking apart the tablet had hurt more than she'd let on. But pain was temporary. Failure was permanent. Her bunkmate, a nervous human named Torres, leaned over from the top rack. Everyone's talking about what you did. Some people think you're brilliant. Others think you're crazy. Both can be true. Reeves flexed her fingers, feeling the strain in the joints. Weren't you scared? You destroyed Coalition property. You could have been expelled. Reeves lay back, staring at the metal ceiling. Being scared doesn't change what needs to be done. The test wasn't about answering questions correctly. It was about showing them how we think under pressure, how we adapt, how we survive. And making a weapon out of your exam seemed like the right way to demonstrate that? Torres, they don't think we belong here. Half the instructors are waiting for us to fail. The other species? They see us as fragile, weak, barely worth the resources to train. She turned her head to look at her bunkmate. So yeah, when my equipment died, I had a choice. I could raise my hand, explain the malfunction, maybe get a retry, probably get marked down for equipment failure, or I could show them exactly what humans do when everything goes wrong, which is, we improvise, we adapt, we survive. Reeves smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. And when necessary, we get really creative with violence. Torres was quiet for a moment. Then, did you actually have an answer for Scenario 7 before your tablet died? Of course. Reeves closed her eyes. I'd written a whole analysis about negotiation tactics and defensive positioning. Probably would have scored me a solid 70%. Maybe 75 if I was lucky. So you destroyed your tablet and made a weapon instead? The tablet was already dead, Torres. But yeah. She laughed quietly. I figured, if I was going to fail anyway, might as well fail spectacularly, make them remember, make them question their assumptions. And, if it hadn't worked, if Qualrix had expelled you? Reeves opened one eye. Then I'd have gone home knowing I tried something different. That I didn't just accept failure quietly. That even for just one moment, I made them see us differently. She paused. Besides, it did work. Across the barracks, other conversations hummed in the darkness. Cadets processing what they'd witnessed, some inspired, some disturbed. All of them re-evaluating what they thought they knew about tactical thinking. In his quarters, 3 decks above, Commander Vrel reviewed the security footage for the 7th time. He watched Reeves break apart the tablet frame by frame, analyzing her technique, her decision-making process, her absolute lack of hesitation once she'd committed to her course of action. Humans were supposed to be the weak ones, the species that needed protection, guidance, careful monitoring. They were new to galactic warfare, new to the Coalition, new to everything beyond their small, isolated planet. But watching Reeves turn a broken testing device into an effective weapon with nothing but her hands and her hair tie? That wasn't weakness. That was something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something useful. Something that might actually give the coalition a chance against enemies who didn't play by conventional rules. Vrel's communicator chimed. Calrix's identification code. Commander? I've reviewed the test submissions from the entire cohort. 93%. Scored between 60 and 85%. Standard distribution. And Reeves? I'm giving her 98%. Vrel's mandibles clicked rapidly. Because she broke coalition property, and I have to dock points for something. Calrix's tone suggested he was enjoying this. Also because if I give a human full marks on a tactical assessment in their first term, I'll have every instructor in the sector questioning my judgment. Fair reasoning. Vrel paused. Assemble a file on her. Complete background, psychological evaluations, family history. Everything. Already started, Commander. And Vrel? There's something else you should know. Yes? This is the third time she's done something like this. Different scenarios, different methods, but the pattern is consistent. When faced with impossible situations, she finds solutions that shouldn't work, that violate conventional tactical doctrine, that succeed anyway. Vrel felt that prickle of instinct again. Send me those files. All of them. Transmitted. Commander, one more thing. In her application interview, the admissions board asked her why she wanted to join the coalition military. Want to know what she said? Tell me, she said, because you're all expecting us to fail, and I really hate disappointing people by doing what they expect. Calrix's laugh was a low rumble. I think we've recruited something special, Commander. Question is whether we can handle it. After the communication ended, Vrel sat in silence, reviewing the files Calrix had sent. Incident reports, training assessments, peer reviews. A pattern emerged. Cadet Reeves didn't just think outside the box. She seemed genuinely confused that the box existed in the first place. Part of him wanted to recommend her for immediate advancement. Fast-track her through training. Get her into active service where her abilities could be utilized. Another part wanted to wash her out immediately, before she became a genuine problem. But the largest part, the part that had kept him alive through countless battles, that had earned him his rank and his reputation, that part recognized something fundamental. The Vrax were winning because they didn't fight like everyone else. They didn't follow the rules. They didn't respect conventional tactics. Maybe the only way to beat them was to stop following the rules too. Maybe the coalition didn't need more soldiers who colored inside the lines. Maybe they needed more soldiers who didn't even see the lines in the first place. Human soldiers. Vrel pulled up the master training schedule and began making changes to Reeves's curriculum. Advanced weapons training, unconventional warfare, special operations theory. If she was going to be dangerous, he'd make sure she was. Dangerous in useful ways. And if the galaxy wasn't ready for humans like Cadet Reeves, well, neither were the Vrax. And that thought made Vrel's mandibles click in genuine anticipation for the first time in years. 3 months later, the Coalition training station orbiting Kelmar 4 looked exactly like it always did. Sterile, efficient, boring, until the alarms started screaming. Commander Vrel was in the middle of a strategic briefing with Admiral Thex when the emergency klaxons shattered the quiet hum of the command deck. Red lights strobed across every surface, and his communicator exploded with overlapping voices, each one more panicked than the last. Sir, we have multiple breaches in the lower training sectors. Unidentified hostiles. Repeat. Unidentified hostiles on decks 9 through 12. Weapons fire reported near the armory. We're locked out of the security systems. Thex, a 4-armed Kelmorian with a face like crumpled leather, slammed one fist on the console. How? Did anyone breach a military station? Where are our perimeter defenses? Vrel was already moving, his 3 eyes processing data streams faster than the Admiral could blink. The breaches originated internally. This isn't an invasion. His mandibles clicked together rapidly. It's a takeover. Impossible! Every being on this station has been vetted, background checked, monitored. Then someone got through anyway. Vrel pulled up the security grid, watching red indicators spread like infection across the station map. Deck 9. Deck 10. Spreading fast. Too fast for conventional assault tactics. Admiral, seal the command deck and activate the distress beacon. I'm going down there. You're one officer against an unknown number of hostiles. Then I'll be very polite when I ask them to surrender. Vrel grabbed his plasma rifle from the wall rack and headed for the exit. The corridors were chaos. Cadets running, instructors shouting orders, automated defenses, trying and failing to activate. Someone had done serious damage to the station's security infrastructure and done it quietly enough that nobody noticed until it was too late. Vrel reached Deck 9 and immediately took cover behind a support column. Down the corridor, he could see them. Vrax warriors, 5 of them, 8 feet tall, armored in their characteristic black exoskeletons, carrying weapons that could punch through bulkheads. On a training station, in the middle of Coalition space. Impossible! Except it was happening right in front of his 3 eyes. One of the Vrax turned its triangular head in his direction, sensors glowing. Vrel fired first, his plasma bolt catching the creature in the shoulder joint. It staggered, but didn't fall. Vrax physiology was redundant. Over-engineered for survival. You had to hit them multiple times in specific locations, or they just kept coming. He fired again. Missed. The Vrax charged, and Vrel calculated his odds of survival at approximately 12%. Then, something small and fast hit the Vrax from the side. Cadet Reeves rolled past the creature's legs, came up in a crouch, and drove something sharp directly into the gap between its armor plates at the back of the knee. The Vrax howled, a sound like metal tearing, and collapsed forward. Reeves was already moving, pulling the improvised blade free, spinning toward the next target. She'd modified her weapon since the exam. The tablet fragment was now secured to a proper grip, wrapped in what looked like emergency medical tape, with additional sharp edges welded along the spine. Commander! She didn't look at him. Her eyes locked on the Vrax regrouping down the corridor. Really bad time for a performance review. Vrel shot another Vrax that was trying to flank them. What are you doing here? This deck should be evacuated. Yeah, I was evacuating. Then I saw these things heading for the junior cadet dorms. She blocked a Vrax blade strike with her weapon, the impact jarring her, the whole body, but she held. Couldn't let them get to the kids. There are protocols for this situation. Right. The protocol where everyone dies while waiting for rescue. She ducked under another strike and hamstrung the Vrax with a vicious upward cut. I like my protocol better. 2 more cadets appeared from a side corridor. Torres and another human named Kim, both carrying makeshift weapons. Not as refined as Reeves's blade, but functional. Deadly. Torres, high left. Kim, watch the back corridor. Reeves barked orders like she'd been doing this for years instead of months. Commander, we need to get these things away from the dorms before reinforcements arrive. Reinforcements? Reinforcements? Vrel shot another Vrax, this one finally staying down. How many are there? At least 15 that I saw. Reeves parried another attack, grunting with effort. They came through maintenance tunnels. Someone gave them station schematics and access codes. An inside job. Worse than Vrel had calculated. He switched his rifle to maximum output. Fall back to the intersection! We create a choke point. Limit their ability to swarm us. The humans moved as a unit, covering each other, their improvised weapons flashing in the emergency lighting. Vrel had trained hundreds of species over his career. Most of them would panic in this situation, break formation, make fatal mistakes. These 3 humans fought like they'd been born for it. A Vrax got past his firing line and grabbed Torres by the throat, lifting the young man off the ground. Torres didn't scream, didn't freeze. Instead, he jammed his weapon, a sharpened piece of bulkhead plating, directly into the Vrax's eye socket and twisted. The creature dropped him, screeching. Kim finished it with a strike to the back of the skull. "They're corralling us," Reeves observed, breathing hard. "Pushing us toward something. This isn't random attack patterns." She was right. The Vrax weren't trying to kill them as efficiently as possible. They were guiding them, herding them like livestock. Trap? Vrel realized. They want us to retreat to... The explosion cut him off. Somewhere above them, deck 8, maybe 7. The whole station shuddered, and Vrel's communicator went dead. Jammed or destroyed, either way they were cut off from command. "Armory," Reeves said flatly. "They just took out the armory. Now, nobody else can arm themselves properly." "How do you know that?" "Because that's what I would do." She wiped blood from her face, her own or the Vrax's. Impossible to tell in the red emergency lighting. Take out communications, seal the command deck, destroy the armory, eliminate armed resistance, standard hostile takeover. The only question is, why they haven't just blown the whole station. Kim checked the corridor behind them. "Clear for now, but we've got movement on the sensors." "More incoming," Torres coughed, rubbing his throat where the Vrax had grabbed him. "We can't fight 15 of these. Things with makeshift weapons." 18 now, Vrel corrected, checking his rifle's charge. "Nearly empty." "And you're correct, Cadet Torres. We can't." "So we run?" Kim asked. Reeves shook her head. "Running just delays the inevitable. They control the station, they control the exits. Running means dying tired." She looked at Vrel, and he saw something in her eyes that made his combat instincts scream warnings. "Unless we change the parameters of the engagement." "Explain." "They want the station intact. That's why they're using small arms instead of just venting us all into space. They want something here, something valuable enough to risk infiltrating Coalition space." Her improvised blade spun in her hand, nervous energy or tactical thinking. "So we threaten to destroy what they want." Vrel's mandibles stopped clicking. "You want to blow up the station?" "Part of it, the right part. Force them to choose between their objective and their survival." She smiled, and it was the same dangerous expression he'd seen after the exam. "We make them play by our rules instead of theirs. That's insane." "Yeah." Reeves checked her weapon. "But is it wrong?" Before Vrel could answer, 6 Vrax warriors rounded the corner at both ends of the corridor. Trapped. Exactly as the enemy had planned. "Commander, permission to do something spectacularly stupid?" Reeves asked, her voice steady despite the approaching death. Vrel calculated their odds, fought through every protocol, every regulation, every rule of proper military conduct he'd learned over decades of service. Then he thought about what the Admiral had said during his last evaluation. "Commander Vrel, your problem is you think too much like everyone else. The Vrax are beating us because we're predictable. Time to be unpredictable. Permission granted, Cadet. Try not to kill us in the process." Reeves's grin widened. "No promises." She turned to Torres and Kim. "Remember the Kessler maneuver from tactics class? The theoretical one that every instructor said would never work in practice?" Torres's eyes widened. "That Kessler maneuver? That's the one. On my mark, we run directly at them." "That's your plan?" Kim's voice went up an octave. "Run at the 8-foot-tall murder machines? Trust me." They ran. Vrel fired his remaining plasma charges into the ceiling above the Vrax at the far end, bringing down a rain of sparking debris and metal. The humans sprinted through the chaos, not away from the enemy, but toward them. The Vrax, expecting retreat, hesitated for exactly 2 seconds. 2 seconds was enough. Reeves slid under the legs of the lead Vrax, blade flashing upward. Torres and Kim went left and right, their weapons finding gaps in armor with desperate precision. Vrel provided covering fire until his rifle went dry, then used it as a club. They broke through the encirclement and kept running. "Where are we going?" Vrel demanded, keeping pace despite his bulk. "Engineering. If they want the station intact, that's what they're after. Either the power core or the prototype fusion drive the Coalition installed last month. That information is classified." "Yeah, I know. I helped install it." At Vrel's shocked look, she shrugged. "What? I'm good with engines. They needed extra hands." Didn't ask too many questions. They reached engineering 3 minutes later, crashing through the doors with Vrax warriors close behind. The massive room hummed with power, the fusion drive sitting in the center like a metallic heart, pulsing with barely contained energy. And standing next to it, already working on the access panel, was Instructor Galactic. "Sir?" Reeves's weapon came up instinctively. The Thulian turned, and Vrel saw his scales were muted gray. Resignation. Shame. "I'm sorry, cadet. I truly am." "You sold us out?" Torres looked like he'd been struck. "Why?" "Because the Vrax don't take no for an answer. They came to me months ago, said they'd spare my homeworld if I helped them acquire Coalition technology." Galactic's clawed hand rested on the fusion drive. "This prototype is worth more than 100 systems. With this, they can upgrade their entire fleet, become unstoppable. So you betrayed everyone, got people killed. For what? A promise from the Vrax?" Reeves moved closer, her blade held low and ready. "They're going to destroy your world anyway. You know that, right? Once they have what they want, you're just a loose end." "Perhaps." Galactic's scales flickered. "But perhaps I buy my people a few more years. Perhaps some of them evacuate. Perhaps I save someone." He looked directly at Reeves. "Wouldn't you make the same choice? If it was your world? Your people?" "No," she said simply. "Because giving them this means nobody survives. Not your people. Not mine. Nobody." The Vrax entered the room behind them. 9 of them. Too many to fight. Too many to escape. Galactic stepped away from the fusion drive. "I've transmitted the access codes. They'll remove the drive and leave. The station will survive. Most of the cadets will survive. It's the best outcome available. There's always another outcome." Reeves looked at the fusion drive, then at Vrel. "Commander, how long would we have if someone destabilized the core containment?" Vrel's 3 eyes went wide. 10 minutes, maybe 12, before catastrophic detonation. And the blast radius would destroy everything within 50,000 kilometers, including any Vrax ships waiting to pick up the drive. "Cadet, you can't be serious. We're still on the station. So we have 10 minutes to get to the escape pods." Reeves turned to Torres and Kim. "Get to the emergency bay. Launch as many pods as you can. Get everyone clear." "What about you?" Kim demanded. "I'll be right behind you." She was lying. They all knew it. Now. The 2 humans hesitated, then ran. Galactic started to move, but Reeves's blade pressed against his throat. "You stay. You created this mess. You get to watch me fix it." The Vrax were advancing slowly, weapons raised but not firing. They wanted the drive intact. That was their weakness. They cared about the objective, more than eliminating threats. "Commander," Reeves said quietly, "I need you to trust me one more time." "What are you planning?" "To fail spectacularly. Just like the exam. Except bigger." She pressed a button on the fusion drive's control panel. Alarms immediately started wailing. Containment lockout initiated. 10 minutes until total failure. The Vrax screeched, several of them rushing forward. Reeves threw her blade with perfect accuracy, catching one in the throat, then grabbed Galactic's and used him as a shield. "Tell them to back off, or I accelerate the countdown." Galactic spoke in the Vrax clicking language. The warriors stopped but didn't retreat. Vrel moved to stand beside Reeves. You realize this is either brilliant or suicidal. Both. Definitely both. She kept one hand on the drives. Panel. Qualrix. Tell them if they leave now, they might make it out of the blast radius. Or they can stay and die for nothing. They won't leave without the drive. Then they're idiots. She pressed another button. 8 minutes. One of the Vrax spoke, its voice a series of harsh clicks and growls. Qualrix translated. He says you're bluffing, that no one would destroy a coalition station. Oh, I'm absolutely not bluffing. See, the thing about humans? Reeves met the Vrax warrior's alien gaze without flinching. We're really good at mutually assured destruction. It's kind of our specialty. Ask our history teachers about the Cold War sometime. We almost blew up our entire planet just to prove a point. Another tense moment. The Vrax warriors consulted among themselves, clicking and hissing. 6 minutes, gentlemen. Reeves's voice was cheerful now. Vrel recognized it. Combat euphoria. The human was enjoying this. Decision time. Die here or run away and explain to your commanders how the soft, weak humans beat you. The lead Vrax snarled something. Then they retreated, slowly at first, then faster. Within 30 seconds, the engineering bay was empty, except for Reeves, Vrel, and Qualrix. 5 minutes, Reeves announced. We should probably go now. Can you stop the countdown? Vrel asked. Nope. I locked myself out. That's what made it convincing. So you actually are going to destroy the station? Part of it. Engineering section will blow. Might take out a deck or two above us, but the evacuation zones should be fine. Probably. Mostly. She released Qualrix and started running. Stop asking questions and move! They ran. Through corridors, past abandoned posts, jumping over debris. Behind them, the fusion drive's hum was rising in pitch, climbing toward critical. 3 minutes. They reached the emergency bay. Torres and Kim were there, holding the last escape pod open. Everyone's clear! We're the last ones! They piled into the small pod, squeezing, together in a space meant for 4, not 5. Reeves slammed the launch button, and the pod shot out into space with enough force to rattle teeth. 2 minutes. Through the viewport, Vrel watched the station growing smaller. The Vrax ships were already retreating, their infiltration team presumably aboard. They'd failed. Lost soldiers and gained nothing. 1 minute. Brace yourselves, Reeves said calmly. The station exploded. Not the whole thing, just the engineering section, exactly as she'd predicted. A brief sun blossoming in the darkness, then fading. The shockwave hit their pod seconds later, spinning them wildly, but the automatic stabilizers kicked in. When the tumbling stopped, they hung in space, watching debris scatter against the stars. The training station was crippled, but intact. The Vrax ships were gone, running from the blast. Everyone okay? Reeves asked, checking her companions. A chorus of groans and affirmatives. Then Torres started laughing. Quietly at first, then louder. You actually did it. You blew up part of a coalition station. Technically, I prevented an enemy takeover and saved hundreds of lives. The property damage was just a side effect. Kim joined the laughter. They're going to court-martial you. Probably. Worth it, though. Vrel looked at the young human who just committed a dozen regulation violations, destroyed millions of credits worth of equipment, and saved them all. Cadet Reeves, that was the most reckless, dangerous, irresponsible tactical decision I've ever witnessed. Thank you, sir. I wasn't finished. It was also exactly the right call. In my report, I'll be recommending you for commendation and immediate promotion. Reeves blinked. Seriously? The Vrax infiltrated a military station, compromised a senior instructor, and nearly stole critical technology. You stopped them with a broken tablet blade and controlled demolition. Vrel's mandibles clicked rapidly. The Coalition needs more soldiers like you. The galaxy needs more soldiers like you. "What about me?" Kalrix asked quietly from the back of the pod. "I betrayed everything. You'll face trial, probably spend the rest of your life in detention." Vrel's tone wasn't angry, just tired. But Cadet Reeves was right. The Vrax would have destroyed your world anyway. You gained nothing. I know. The instructor's scales had gone completely gray. I was desperate, made the wrong choice, convinced myself it was for good reasons. He looked at Reeves. "How did you know what to do? How did you not hesitate?" "Because I grew up on a planet where we almost destroyed ourselves 100 times. We learned the hard way that sometimes the only winning move is to flip the table entirely." She shrugged. "Also, I'm really stubborn. When someone tells me I can't do something, it just makes me want to do it more." Rescue ships arrived an hour later. Medical teams, security forces, engineers to assess the damage. The story spread fast. 3 human cadets and a Castorian commander holding off Vrax warriors with improvised weapons and tactical insanity. Reeves's file grew considerably longer. 6 months after that, during the award ceremony where she received her commendation, Admiral Thex asked her the question everyone wanted answered. "Cadet Reeves, now Lieutenant Reeves, you've demonstrated exceptional tactical thinking under pressure, but you also have a concerning pattern of property destruction and protocol violation. How do we trust you in future operations?" Reeves stood at attention, her dress uniform crisp, her new rank insignia gleaming. "Sir, you don't trust me to follow the rules. You trust me to get the job done when the rules stop working. Every species in this coalition has thousands of years of military tradition, protocols built on centuries of experience. That's your strength, but it's also your limitation. You fight the way you've always fought." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Humans are new. We don't have thousands of years of tradition. We barely made it off our own planet without killing ourselves. But that means we see solutions you don't. Problems you've accepted as unsolvable. We question everything because we haven't learned what questions we're not supposed to ask. And property destruction is cheaper than extinction, sir." The Admiral's face rippled in what might have been amusement. "Fair point, Lieutenant. You're assigned to the Rapid Response Division. Special operations, unconventional warfare, impossible situations. Try not to blow up too much of our infrastructure. No promises, sir." Later, after the ceremony, Vrel found her on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Congratulations, Lieutenant." "Thank you, Commander. Though I still think they should have given Torres and Kim bigger medals. They took down Vrax warriors with scrap metal. They'll get their recognition. But you, Reeves, you turned a failed exam into a weapon. Turned a station, takeover into a victory. Humans keep surprising us." "Good. The moment you stop being surprised is the moment we become predictable." She glanced at him. "Is that what worries you? That we're unpredictable?" "Yes and no. I worry that the galaxy isn't ready for what happens when humans stop being the new species and start being the dangerous one." His mandibles clicked softly. "But I'm also grateful you're on our side. Where else would we be? You gave us a chance when nobody else would. Let us prove ourselves when everyone expected us to fail." Reeves smiled. "Besides, someone has to keep you all from getting too comfortable with your protocols and procedures. Is that your mission now? Organizational disruption? My mission is to survive. To help my people survive. To maybe, possibly, save the galaxy from itself if I have time between assignments." She turned back to the viewport. The Vrax are still out there, still winning battles, still pushing forward. But they've learned something now. "What's that?" "That humans don't quit. We don't surrender. We don't accept defeat." Her reflection in the glass showed that dangerous smile again. "And when you back us into a corner with no weapons and no options, that's when we get really creative." Vrel looked at the young officer beside him and thought about the reports he'd been reading. Other human cadets following Reeves's example. improvising, adapting, questioning assumptions, breaking rules that needed breaking. The coalition had recruited humans out of desperation, needed bodies to replace losses, expected them to fail quietly. Instead, they'd gained something far more valuable, a species that fought like the galaxy had never seen. That turned every disadvantage into opportunity. That refused to lose, even when losing was logical. The instructor said, "Use what you have," Vrel observed. "You took that literally." "I take everything literally until someone proves I shouldn't." Reeves straightened her. "Uniform. Now, if you'll excuse me, Commander, I have a briefing on my new assignment. Something about a diplomatic crisis on a mining station. Hostage situation. Standard procedure failing. Let me guess. They want you to find an unconventional solution. They want me to do what humans do best." She headed for the exit, pausing at the door. Make the impossible look easy, and maybe break a few things in the process. After she left, Vrel stood alone in the observation deck, watching coalition ships patrol the void. Somewhere out there, the Vrax were planning their next move, adapting their tactics, growing stronger. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd given humans a reason to fight. And worse, they'd given humans time to learn. The exam had been simple. Demonstrate tactical thinking under pressure. Reeves had turned it into a philosophy. When everything fails, make something new. When the rules don't work, change them. When defeat seems certain, flip the table and start. "Over," Vrel's communicator chimed. Admiral Thex's voice crackled through. "Commander, we need you in strategic planning. The humans have submitted a proposal for Vrax engagement protocols. It's completely insane. Does it work? We don't know. It's never been tried. Too risky, too unpredictable, too human?" A pause. "Yes, too human." Vrel smiled, a human gesture he'd picked up. "Then, let's try it. The old ways aren't working. Time to use what we have." He headed for the strategy room, where Lieutenant Reeves was probably already explaining why conventional wisdom was wrong and controlled chaos was right. Where Torres and Kim were probably backing her up with data and determination. Where human thinking was colliding with galactic tradition and creating something entirely new. The Vrax wanted a war of attrition, a grinding, predictable conflict, where superior numbers and established tactics would eventually win. Instead, they'd gotten humans, armed with improvised weapons, impossible ideas, and absolute refusal to accept defeat. Somewhere in the depths of space, Vrax commanders were learning a lesson their species had never encountered before. Some prey doesn't run, some prey fights back, and some prey, when cornered and outgunned, turns its exam into a weapon and dares the universe to stop it. The galaxy was about to get very interesting, and Vrel, despite everything, couldn't wait to see what happened next.